Good time of day to all of you, my friends here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Alright, welcome back. What every Russian schoolboy knows live. And today's talk, of course, the upcoming Sinquefield Cup in St. Louis, Missouri, in a beautiful chess club and scholastic center, the real center
Good time
of chess.
of day to all of you, my
Chess
friends
here
here
on
on
the
the
Internet Chess Club. This is Yeah, so we're gonna be watching this tournament, of course, and you guys all know the lineup. It's all the best players except for the guy who's supposed to win every tournament. That's Magnus Carlsen. Well, it was a blow to the tournament when Magnus declined his invitation. Well, he is always in the center of attention, of course, but I think the official explanation is that Magnus is preparing for the World Championship match. Well, yeah, but no, Magnus is not really known for kind of clamping down and spending months and months preparing. He doesn't need that. It's kind of out of character, and that's not what he has done in the past. And given his track record, he probably shouldn't be changing anything. So the real question is why? Why isn't Magnus there? The Chess Olympiad? No, it's still like a month away. I guess maybe the real reason was that rift, that started earlier this year, or maybe at the end of last year, between the organizers of Norway Chess and the group behind the Grand Chess Tour. Okay, well, maybe it's Garry Kasparov and company. I don't know who else makes this, but suppose just Garry Kasparov. I guess the organizers, they thought, okay, this is our tournament. We had it before Grand Chess Tour, and we paying the bills, and we just don't want to be kind of just a part of something. Well, we're good as the standalone tournament. Well, they have the right, of course, to decide it this way. So therefore, a problem appeared over there. So it's like the Norway chess tournament was scheduled at the time when US Championship was taking place. It's almost like, okay, take it or leave it. Obviously, it would be a huge blow for American chess if Hikaru and Fabiano and Wesley didn't play in the championship. They would basically destroy the tournament. So they made it impossible for them to play in Norway chess, and kind of in, I don't know, reciprocity, if you wish. Yeah, and then Magnus is not coming to St. Louis. Little sad, but anyway, we still have 10 pretty good players, and looking at the field, we find him now as the favorite is world's newest number 2, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Okay, so where he's at now? Some 28-19 or 28-15. Okay, I have this, right? This is how you get there. Now, this is MVL's results this year so far. 66 games, no losses. Amazing, right? Well, MVL is a sharp player. He plays the Grunfeld, he plays the Najdorf with black. He attacks with white, and yet no losses. Well, you can say that some of these tournaments, actually the knock on MVL was alright. He played in France, French team championship, and well, had 10 games and scored 8.5 out of 10. Playing majority of games with the white pieces, but okay, even if you look at his rating gain separately, he only gained like 9 points. But altogether rating gain, of course, is much bigger. And besides, he did win Dortmund convincingly and just now defeated Peter Svidler in the match. Alright, well, great results, no doubt about it. Okay, so how did he do this? Okay, the book on MVL always was and is that he's well prepared theoretically, likes to study his sharp lines, and a great middle game player. his games are always full of tactical content, and he calculates variations extremely quickly, and has the imagination and that it takes to be a truly great tactical player. So he finds things that other players may not notice, and also he's got the guts. Clearly, he goes for complications. I don't know, but not quite for complications' sake. It's not so simple, but this is what people thought he would do. Go to any kind of complications. But with experience, and MVL is what? He's only 2 months older than Magnus, so he's 26. So now it's the, whatever, it's the peak, right? Peak age. Still youth and energy and good memory and experience already there. So, I would like to present to your attention this game. That's from the Dortmund tournament. So, in Dortmund tournament, MVL possibly decided the outcome of the tournament by beating his main competitor, Fabiano Caruana, with black in the first round, the black side of the Najdorf. You probably saw this game. It wasn't really a great game in the sense that, MVL didn't have to do anything special. He played well enough to keep the position, and Fabiano is known for his ambition, sacrificed a pawn. Still had enough for a pawn and could have forced a draw, but, we know Fabiano, of course, nothing but a draw. Even if he was getting low on time, is kind of losing his tactical options. So he kept the tension for maybe move or two too long, and MVL got him. So, but the game I really liked the most was this game against Ruslan Ponomarev. Ruslan is kind of making his comeback now. He is kind of away from chess, or maybe his mind was away from chess for a few years, but now he settled in a new country, Spain. He's married with a child and improved his physical conditions. And while his result in the Dortmund tournament was nothing special, and still 2 losses, he scored 50%. But I think quality of his play was much better than in recent years. So Ruslan is not that old, right? Only 33, so he can do things. I think he's 33. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, early 30s. And this game, alright, MVL opens with e4. e4 remains Maxime's main move, main weapon, as all e4 players these days, he has to deal with the Berlin. He dabbled a little bit, in the Berlin, but it's so hard to get things going over there that he already, not for the first time, many times he tried this line, which is sort of a sideline in the Berlin where we get the position, the kind of symmetrical position, pawns-wise, but before it gets to what we usually see in the exchange French, there are some things there, and then this game is a good example of MVL's creativity. Now, he doesn't want to take on c6, we understand that, because black would actually benefit from moving that pawn to c6, because then his development will be solved, the bishop comes out. As it is now, the pawn remains on d7, shutting out that c8 bishop, out of play. And the knight on d6, which is centralized, but somewhat unusually positioned. Alright, so most of the time, what do we have here? All these moves are played. By the way, I'm using some notes generously shared with me by International Master David Bruce. Thank you, David. You told me a lot about this game. Alright, so Kramnik's plan. He goes knight f5 and then plays d5 next. Isn't this enough to equalize? On the face of it, maybe, but I mean, white gets this comfortable pawn structure and moves the bishop out. There was this recent game, blitz game, between Magnus Carlsen and Vladimir Kramnik. Well, Kramnik did everything he was supposed to do. He played g6 and he moved the knight back and traded the white square bishops, but it took him quite a bit of time. In the end, he surrendered the e-file. And the rest of the game, should have been a Carlsen clinic, but strangely in that game, Magnus misplayed the rook endgame and blew a clear win. But it served notice to players with the black pieces that things are not so simple. Okay. Rook e8. Things are different now. And MVL plays knight c3. Now, speaking of his active play and the challenges he presents to his opponents, how about that pawn? Do you want the pawn on d4? Well, Ruslan took, but he decided not to accept the sacrifice. Any idea why? Alright, anyone? You're saying sayonara? Well, I only started, come on people, don't leave me. So give me your thoughts, like what is that White's trying to get for a central pawn on d4? What's up if bishop takes d4, which I repeat was not played? Ooh. Okay, a couple of things we notice. Let's steal that knight on d6. Awkward piece. Well, immediately, bishop f4. Another thing, the d file open for the white rook. That's the pressure. And the position of the bishop on c8 may be center activity, absolutely. The position of the bishop on c8 needs to be fixed somehow. But it may become more of a long-term problem, as you will see later in the game, if white decides to take on d6. The problem is that white is not really telling you what he's going to do in this situation. Okay, for example, if say knight there, then comes knight d5. And if we go this way, then white can perhaps play for this check, the misplacing the king, and then is going with the knight on f5, the rook on d1. That is certainly represents a problem. If black instead decides to reduce the number of pieces on the board and go back like this, then David Bruce gives a good line that starts with rook e1 and then on d6 bishop g5. A typical disrupting move, right? You can't take this bishop because of rook e8 mate. And to do what? To play this? It's pretty dangerous. Now bishop c4 becomes possible. And then further problems, on the back rank. Knight f6, also not a good solution with the king open like this. Although this has been played. I forgot who played this game, but I think this has been played, and black was able to defend by bringing the bishop over there and back to g6 to protect. But anyway, you'll find yourself under pressure if you accept a sacrifice like this. So Ruslan, as I said, he's been kind of out of top chess for some time and probably didn't study that much. And he figured, okay, well, I can't go in this kind of stuff. Obviously, MVL was way within his preparation. And came up with this idea to play b6. Now the bishop comes out. And bishop b7. Alright, black found a solution to that bishop problem. He got the bishop on a nice long diagonal. And what happened from this point on is just really, in my opinion, a great example of a new Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and a new mature player who deservingly occupies now the second position in the world rankings. He took on d6. So we have this pawn structure, but seemingly the pawns do not restrict the bishops now, right? But white has more of a long-term plan, which probably would start with bishop c4, then possibly bringing the bishop to d5, or maybe even getting into opposite cover bishop situation. Besides, queen e3 prepares rook e1, so white will grab the e file, which further restrict, black's options. Putting the rook on c8 was possible. Hang on a second. I gotta get. Ponomarev is a boring player. Well, yeah, he has this technical style. No, well, style is, of course, but then again, I think, if he ever regains his form and improves his health and stamina, then he's gonna be a tough guy to deal with, because his ability to play end games is always been exceptional. Well, going back to that knockout championship, Ruslan was a young player, and obviously it was a huge upset when he defeated Ivanchuk. Well, I understand the personal sympathies, and Ivanchuk indeed played a fantastic tournament. That World Cup, or rather it was World Championship. Then he eliminated Anand. Ruslan, okay, let me see. So that was the year 2001, he was 18 years old. Yeah. So he's 33, yeah. He's same age as Grishuk. 1 year younger than Aronin. It seems like Ponomarev has to be older, but just because he's been around for such a long time. But no, it's possible that he'll make a comeback. Around the same age, I think Gata Kamsky was, right? When he came back to chess and played pretty well. I see no reason why Ponomarev cannot do the same. But in this situation, he played queen e7. Oh yeah, forgot Kramnik. I don't know. He said that the health issue. He said my back flared up again. No, I don't know. I really, I'm not that close to Kramnik, and I don't really know how serious his health problems are. Well, to me, back pain, all right. Well, pretty much everybody I know experiences back pain. It's just part of getting older, right? A little bit. So no, I'm sure there are degrees of this. If Kramnik says that he couldn't sleep and he had to take medication during the Dortmund tournament, and is simply in no condition to enter another event, it's entirely possible. I mean, able replacement in Peter Svidler, a man who is invited to the tournament last, stands a good chance of finishing first. Yeah. So after queen e7, now that's really clean. So first move is g3. Alright, he's looking to trade bishops, it seems, right? After that, the white knight can come to d5. It's interesting, it would be an exception from a general rule that you need to put a knight in a central square where it's protected by a pawn. In fact, for example, king f8, and we do this. In fact, the knight doesn't even need this kind of protection, right? It will come to d5 and just stand there, because neither the black bishop or the rook could possibly get to it. Maybe the only chance for black is to restrain it a little bit by putting the rook on the c file. But I think white here has the time to bring the rook to d2, and then if the knight arrives in d5 and then c3, well, basically white will secure his advantage. And looking ahead, you don't know with black if you're gonna be able to survive this. It's pretty tough. But after king f8, interestingly enough, that bishop g2 wasn't played. And that was just Really an interesting decision. And I thought, why? I thought of bishop c6. Just trying to keep the... keep the knight from coming to d5. Couple of things there, First of all, knight d5 is still possible. That opposite cover bishop endgame, that's going to be played also for a win with white. Because the bishop's much better on d5 than any square where the black bishop could get to. c3 will seal counterplay against d4 on the c file. White can start operating over there, or possibly opening up the king side. d5. Okay, d5, similar thing that happened in the game. I'm thinking maybe this line should be revisited and looked a little bit deeper. Maybe bishop f6. So now rook d2, right? Maybe this is the moment where black plays this active move. Puts the rook to c4 and attacks the d4 pawn. So white doesn't have the time, doesn't quite have the time to go knight d5 and c3. And if he has to go this way, maybe black will be in time with some kind of counterattack. Now you need to play c3 to swing the knight around, and then comes b4. Well, still, most people would play bishop g2 here. And I was amazed, that a4 was played. And that sort of a typical for some Sicilian positions, but this pawn structure is a bit unusual. Nonetheless, what to do? The pawn threatens to go forward. Bishop c6. Now, right, we can look at this. Now, there could be two issues with the move a5. First off, this one. Now the situation is different because the white knight can come to b5 after the trade. This will secure the queen side easily. And then the knight can possibly swing around somewhere. Secondly, after bishop c6, I'm looking at this possibility. We actually looked at this together with David Bruce. Maybe a possible idea. What else is there? Play a6. Yeah, that was another possibility. But Ruslan put his bishop over there, and now came a5. So he took. That created a weakness on the a file. Look at MVL now, d5. It's so difficult to play this move. Seemingly you're giving up all the dark squares, but white correctly calculated that he can stop black's counterplay while keeping the light square bishop now out of play. Before that, it seemed that the dark square bishop was more of a problem, but now it's this. a6, very nice move. And he begins his setup. And everything is tactics, tactics, tactics. You do this, you get punished by the move knight b6. Very nice work from MVL. So soon he's about to get a firm grip on the position. Okay, so the b7 bishop is out of play. But in order to keep it there, white must stay with the knight on a4. Otherwise, some a4 will break out. But MVL correctly judged that he's keeping the bishop out of play for now, and also controls the e-file. And while black is trying to reorganize his pieces, white will be able to gain some space on the king side. But first, extremely accurate play over there, bringing the king. Everything's under control. And now bishop d1. This is gonna free up the white rook to hit some targets over there. And not only the bishop protects b3, it also protects against this idea. Rook b4 followed by bishop takes c4. I mean, usually this chess, it's Kramnik or better Magnus Carlsen territory. It's nice to see MVL confidently going for this kind of position. And now rook to f5. Now he wants to play h4 or f4 and shatter black's position. Indeed. So nothing here. a4, knight takes back. The bishop overprotects on a4. There is no way for Ponomarev to get out of this cage. So he goes back. After this trade, next step. Now the king comes back. Since the white rook is open, well, now white figures he can throw the bishop to h5 and gain the 7th. What to do against it? Ponomarev decides on bishop g1. It's just hard to play this move. Yeah, one more piece kinda out of play. And off the board, and then the fact that one of your pieces is out of play becomes more and more important as the game goes along. I'm not quite sure. I can't really indicate a winning plan here for white. It's just going to be obviously quite some work, but no, possibilities are there. Instead, counterattack. Well, for a tactical player, the player who calculates variations first and looks for tactical ideas, well, no position is dead. Well, seek and you will find. And with this move, bishop h5, MVL begins an attack on black king, with only a few available pieces for that. And amazingly how it worked out. So gives this check, hits the pawn on d7. Now this. And now he plays a fantastic breakthrough c5. It's so easy to miss because it seemed like the whole thing was about keeping that bishop out of play. But now suddenly different story. Some people wondered there, why not knight e4? I think in reply there would be a4 and the bishop comes out, but to greater effect. There was a line I looked at. Here, there, knight takes d6, rook c7. No mate yet. And well, I don't know, maybe black can survive. It's very annoying also that you cannot take this bishop, because then your g4 bishop hangs with check. Yeah. I wanted to talk about this, the Russian Chess Federation proposal. First of all, what is Russian Chess Federation? There is this guy, pretty much one guy, the oligarch, the multimillionaire named Filatov, who kind of took over this thing. And in a similar way, maybe as Rex Sinquefield, who underwrites basically the pretty much entire top-level chess in the United States from US Junior and up. Well, the difference between Rex and Filatov is, I guess, that Rex really is not seeking any spotlight. So he genuinely loves chess, and he likes these guys, our top players, and he would like to support them. He's more like a philanthropist. And he's not in this thing to make a name for himself or change the chess world. Well, the chess in many ways, yeah. And then this guy Filatov. Okay, first of all, it's not the first proposal. If you remember, you probably don't remember, some years ago, same proposal came from Silvio Danailov and his group of supporters from Sofia. That's where they ran the Sofia tournament and Sofia rules, and claimed that Topalov was a undisputed world champion, which Vassilin probably never was. Anyway, so the talk was, okay, well, let's, if there is a worthy challenger, then why bother with qualification? Let's just have a world championship match. It all comes down to who's the worthy challenger. Now, they say the guy has to be 27, 25 at that time. No, right, the name was floating around. Of course, it was Radzhabov. With Azerbaijani oil money, that was more than possible, because what essentially it comes down to is money. Because the challenger is supposed to secure the prize fund. You're right, okay, 19th century, early 20th century. This whole thing that probably ended with Alek and Oeve matches. Well, even now, I read this whole thing, right? They say, well, if there's a federation that has a challenger and they take care of the organization, meaning they take care of the money. And once again, Radzhabov was mentioned. Now, right, I could somewhat understand Radzhabov's, not rights, but you can only have rights if you win a candidates tournament. At least claims, to be one of the best players and able to put up the challenge. Indeed, a match between Topalov and Radzhabov 6 years ago, whenever it was, 7 years ago, would probably be an interesting contest. Then Radzhabov, at some moment, he almost reached 2,800. He was in top 5 in the world. Where's Radzhabov now? Well, his rating is 2720. He doesn't play chess. No, so well, this is the thing. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think removing the sporting element out of this would really just make this World Championship match not really worthy of our attention. I mean, you could say, yeah, all right, Rex puts up the money, and then Nakamura or Caruana play Carlsen. But so they both played in the candidates tournament. They can play in next candidate tournament too. I think that they don't really need this. I mean, they can earn it themselves, and then maybe even if they earn it themselves, maybe they would play better. Well, I don't know really. I don't support this idea at all. To me, it's just nonsense. No, there's still possible to organize some kind of a qualification system, even outside of FIDE. Suppose FIDE completely just whatever goes bankrupt or just quits, just like the USCF stopped supporting the US Championship and the US Olympic team a long time ago. There could be people, it may even open up for some sponsors to organize, but organize what? Obviously a candidates tournament. Besides Magnus himself, he doesn't want to play matches, he wants to play a tournament World Championship. Where does Filatov come from? Who does he represent? Except for him and his millions. Is he speaking for Karyakin? Probably not. Karyakin qualified. Is he trying what, to organize a match for Kramnik? I don't know if Kramnik really wants it. The guy is now unable to play chess, according to him, because of physical condition. And obviously, he was among the players who had to play 54 games, Rapid and Blitz, in Paris and Leuven, Belgium. So it was difficult. So maybe he was feeling the after effects of this. But point is that maybe a best step would be to indeed, okay, when Magnus says enough is enough, now I beat Karyakin, well, I don't want to play any more matches. Let me into this candidates tournament and let's have it, 10 players, double round robin. Okay, it's a huge event, 18 games, what more do you want? And the guy who wins becomes world champion. I think that would be the best event. You take like the last candidates. No, right, Topalov kind of was obviously off form and not interested in this. But you put Magnus there and MVL, that would really be the greatest tournament. Would be. So to me, if I wanted to see something in the future, I would rather prefer to see this World Championship tournament There were precedents, you know, like, well, San Luis and then Mexico City when Anand won. I think time is ripe for that. But it's up to Magnus to decide. If Magnus wants to continue with World Championship matches, then I just don't think he's necessarily committed to this kind of stuff. He's committed now to one match. So I'm returning to this game, and what I'm seeing here is the great move c5. Look at MVL. You know, his eye is on the king, always. So he finds this d takes d6. Amazing, but it's mate. This only delays the procedure. White returns with the bishop to h5, and then in reply to any move, for example this one, he's just gonna do discover check, send the king back, and then mate. So c5 is just really a great move. So Ruslan fights, he takes over there, now comes the tempo. No, same thing, you know, if the bishop comes back, then after c takes, white has this mating net. So there's no choice but to sack a piece. When I saw this position, I wasn't quite sure if white could win this, because there are 3 pawns, pretty good pawn structure now, and white only has 2 pawns. I was actually thinking that he would go something like rook f6 and try to win some pawns, but instead a totally different strategy. Continuing to dominate the black pieces and looking to attack the king. This is a great idea. I mean, look at this. The bishop is now open, but he doesn't have e2 or f1. So he plays rook b6. Obviously, this would meet with that. And then discover check, right? If you step to d7, otherwise he takes on d6. So Ponomarev played the right move, so he protects the pawn on d6, and seemingly he's hanging in there. But there it comes, king c3. Okay. Time to get the bishop out and hit the pawn on d5. Now check. And then this check. What to do here? I mean, I thought of going king g6, but then white will continue combining these tactics. Pretty tactics, right? On this comes check. You thinking you can counterattack the rook, bishop returns to h5, and then knight takes d5. Up 2 pieces, white of course will win. So this combined play is just amazing. It's rook e8, now with serious difficulties. Now after that, white would continue with check. Now probably it's the right time to collect some pawns. And continue in the same way. Attack continues. Once again, you cannot touch that on account of rook takes d6, discovery, and then on the bishop. So black cannot break out of this. Numerous threats, of course. Knight takes d6 among them. Yeah, Ruslan went king e5, and now comes the final. The final procedure there. It's very pretty. The knight comes to e3. For now, protecting the pawn again. On account of accurate. Okay, that's maybe this check. You can't even go over there because it's a fork. So the pawn is taboo. If you go rook b4, then white will be happy to play this little move. And before you think, oh, he's on the defensive now, well, then you realize that there is not one, but 2 mating threats. The only way to stop it is to give up more stuff. No, that is going to be lost, of course, no doubt about it. The rook is going to beat 3 pawns. So 2 mates after bishop f3. Ruslan played king e4. Now this, attack Staruk. Oh, give him credit for allowing MVL to complete this absolutely beautiful game by checkmating the Black King in the middle of the board without queens. Only one rook, 3 pieces. Okay, the king was helping too. Amazing, absolutely, from start to finish. That's, I don't know, maybe to me it's the game of the year. I know there were some great games, including Magnus's wins in Bilbao. Some of them were very impressive, but this and the way it went, the clarity of thought there, how he played bishop takes d6, and then attacked on the queen side, and then d5. I'm just going through this fragments, that was just how he secured everything, and with c4 and switched the rook over there, and then f4. Everything was just perfect. But what makes it particularly amazing to me that the game was not decided by some kind of dull technical conversion, that the tactical explosion that started with the move c5. To me, it really does it, and makes it a great game. All right, guys. So, MVL. I want to hear some skeptics here. I want to hear people saying, yeah, so what? Caruana was number 2. So was Aronian for many years. Briefly Nakamura. Even shorter period was Grishuk. Now, he'll come back to earth. People visit number 2 and then they drop down. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. But I certainly see a reason why MVL is where he is now. He simply played, once again, let me show you this thing. He simply played best chess, maybe outside of Magnus. And that, of course, is questionable, because Magnus did win the Norway chess and finished ahead of MVL, and Magnus also played better in both Rapid and Blitz at the start of the Grand Chess Tour. But, I mean, this score, over 70%, speaks for itself. Well. Well, obviously, pretty much every participant of the Sinquefield Cup has chances to win the tournament. Even Topalov. When Topalov said, I just didn't want to play in this, he didn't mean chess, he meant the candidates tournament. And he said in his interviews that I just don't care for World Championship anymore, and I don't want to do this. Okay, fine. Well, but we shouldn't forget that a year ago Topalov won the Norway chess, and he really played well. Even at the start of Sinquefield Cup last year, he defeated Carlsen and then Nakamura in the first 2 games. So it's entirely possible that even Topalov, Svidler, he's invited to last in the tournament. Psychologically tougher than Caruana or Giri. Well, MVL has this stare, that yeah, there is fire in his eyes. Yeah, it's true. But then again, I don't want to doubt Caruana's fighting spirit. No, I think Caruana's problem mainly is that he's too ambitious, and just at the expense of his practical results. Maybe would be better for him if he measured the situation on the board, and the particular situation on the clock, more carefully compared with with his desire to win every game. As for Anish Giri, yeah, Anish, I don't know. Anish still, to me, he's still not a proven player in terms of contention, world championship contention. Well, he simply, not only he hasn't won any of these tournaments, which he plays regularly, elite tournaments, I don't think he was very close to winning any of them. He was obviously in the mix in every tournament he played in the Grand Chess Tour last year, because he never lost a single game. Particularly, maybe the last event, but eventually Magnus was able to win some games at the finish. Well, Anish, I don't know. He handled the criticism of the 14 draws at the candidates. He handled it the best way, in an exemplary fashion, really. He made jokes and all that, but as far as really getting over the hump and breaking out of this, he wasn't able to do this. In fact, lately, particularly in tournament in Bilbao, it seemed like he started off trying to play sharper chess, but then he kind of reverted back to his usual self. But even without the success he had in the past, so he had one of the worst results in the quality of his one of the worst results of his career, and the quality of his play in Bilbao was nowhere near the level he showed at the candidates. Karyakin reminds of Pologaevsky, the nice of a guy. Well, I don't know really. I don't know Karyakin at all personally. To me, it seems like, he's kind of working on the image, and there is this, I don't know. He was sort of appointed in some ways, as the top guy who will bring the chess crown back to Mother Russia. He still had to earn it, which he did. He won all critical games in the 2015, obviously, and the Russia-China match and the World Cup, and then he showed determination and will to win, obviously, at the candidates. But what we see in Karyakin now is it's just reverting, and going back to as you describe. It doesn't show any determination to win chess games, and I think it's the worst way to prepare for this match. All this talk about Karyakin hiding novelties. What novelties? Where are the novelties that decide the outcome of the game? Well, it's impossible to find a novelty like this. So all the games are still to be played on, and you need determination and desire to go to the end and fight till the last move. If you hope to win even one game against Magnus Carlsen. And the Karyakin showed absolutely nothing in Bilbao, and not much, in Shamkir or the Russian Team Championship, the events that he played after the candidates. So, in my eyes, Karyakin took a dive. Before that, I was giving him actually a lot, 40% after the candidates. But now I just look at him and I don't know if I should give him 20% a chance to defeat Magnus in the match. I don't know. Well, I think almost every decision that he made was wrong after he won the candidates. Maybe the burden of being the candidate affects him. Giri. No, Fabiano. I think Fabiano is, he has clearly issues that if he resolves them, and they're not some kind of deeply seated psychological things, it just has an issue of overly ambitious play and not paying enough attention to the clock. And he gets in time trouble, and he blunders in time trouble. So once he learns to avoid such situations, Fabiano will still remain contender. Obviously, everything else is there. We will see. So any of these guys can win. What about Nakamura? He break out by finally defeating Magnus Carlsen, but that happened in round 1 in Bilbao, and I think that took the rest of his strength out, because Hikaru obviously, along with others, he was tired after that blitz and rapid 54 games in 10 days. That was too much. Okay. Now, MVL, however, doesn't seem to be affected, and he played more after Dortmund. He played Peter Svidler in the match. Now, this is game 3. The match was actually interesting contest. And first they played Rapid, and MVL won by the count of 2.5 to 1.5. So 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Then they went to classical chess, and after kind of a quiet draw in game 1, game 2 MVL had a technical win, kind of convincing performance, but it was made much easier by Svidler's trademark self-destruction in the worst end game. He simply doesn't seem to have the mental energy to defend worst end games. No, Svidler versus Magnus is hypothetical. It's like you against Magnus or whatever. Svidler is not going to be playing Magnus anytime soon. So we only care what happens in this World Championship match. Winston, as I said, I'm thinking that it's entirely possible that it's going to be the last World Championship match. I really don't see, a big drive and desire, to support this thing for any longer time. When the what's now candidates with addition of Magnus Carlsen would become the grand event of them all. All right. So Peter needed to win it back, and now how does MVL handle this? Neither. First of all, he's going to Scheveningen here. And he did this before. He actually lost a game to Anand. But in that game, he returned with the knight to d7. He's doing a similar thing, but now, after h4. So white has to decide. So on the one hand, white already advanced his pawns there, as they do sometimes in a g3 variation. So he's a tempo ahead. But if he goes h4, the way Svidler went, he's actually down a tempo, that extra move a6 compared with Keres attack, where the pawn goes from h2 to h4. It may not be very important in this case, but we will see during the game. Alternatively, f4? This is how they play it now. They play this move, kind of bothering white, with this check. And when you castle, there, knight c2, trade, e5. Typical procedure. This is known since times of Viktor Korchnoi, right? This is how you play the Scheveningen variation. You always play e5 when the knight is on d4 and trade on f4. You give up d5, you give up a lot of stuff, but you gain e5 for your knight. Well, block. The dialect. Well, I'm sure Darko, you can understand every word. So, well, let's just leave the linguistics, aside of this. So this is what they play for in this situation. And then, well, in some ways, when white goes g4, it probably doesn't want a typical Scheveningen position, as we saw, because there are more holes on the dark squares. So in some way, I understand, in some ways, why h4 was played here. And I had some experience on the black side of this. And my game saw that the pawn remained on a7 because it was coming from the old Scheveningen variation, Keres attack move order. Essentially, it's the same. It's absolutely the same thing. So white does this, and he wants to put the pawn to g6. So this is traded. Now knight h7. Yeah. I mean, alternatively, black can do this. I tried that. No, white has clear compensation for a pawn, because he's got the d5 square for the knight, and is quickly gonna develop, and he's gonna castle long. The only problem remains is that bishop on h1. Useless piece, almost passive. Well, if the bishop was on b3, now if you want to combine Keres attack with Fischer-Sozin attack, then indeed, yeah. So therefore, right now I'm not sure I would have done the same thing. That was years ago. My opponent was Sergei Makarychev. Now kind of middle of the road grandmaster in the Soviet days. He devoted himself to coaching and later became a broadcaster on Russian television when they had a chess show, him and his wife. Well, we played an interesting game. It was eventually done. But possibly MVL's plan is more flexible. So he's leaving the pawn on s6. I mean, he actively wants white to play f4, because then knight takes d4 and e5 will break it open and allow black to get to the white king before white gets to castle long. Maybe white started this attack too soon. No, well, it's too late now to worry about that. I mean, you still worry about that, but you can't go back. You can't have it all. You want to drive the knight away from f6, as they do often in Keres attack. You're going to have to deal with a certain delay in your own development. I like Svidler's idea here. So he took on c6. Now, this is totally like frowned upon, seriously. And people say, no, don't take on c6 because you bring another black pawn to the center. And then d5 is under his control and he put the pawn on f5 and yada, yada, yada. I agree with all that. But what it does, this move, it allows white to complete his development and castle long. And I think this was a great decision. And now queen d3. There's simply not enough action there for black to generate in the center before white gets the bishop out and castles. This is how the game went. Now, why e5? No, you probably don't want to allow the opponent to play e5, right? That's going to hit it all. It's going to hit this and, more importantly, g6. Alright, so e5 is forced. Fair enough. Now he plays queen c4 now. This is annoying, right? The queen becomes active. MVL had to protect the pawn on c6. So for now it seems like that Svidler is in control. But to give credit to MVL, he's a true Sicilian player. So he's not fazed by this. He understands the dangers, but well, he plays what he has to play. If it's a defensive move, so be it. But always with the eye on counterattack. See how he did it. Bishop g5. Alright, so that's gonna clear out some path, you know, for the black queen to go to the king's side. There it goes. And knight a4. Nice. Aiming at the b6 square. Well, as I said, the only thing that's missing from white's setup is the bishop on b3. Now, if you can do that, well, Max Dlugi and I were making jokes that, well, if you play cylindrical chess, right? So you basically take the chessboard and fold it so the A and H files, they touch each other. Then you actually already on this diagonal, right? Because I2 equals A2. I2, another file to the right. Because it's cylindrical. So as long as you move this pawn forward, your bishop is actually, that stands here on the whatever letter comes before A, already supports the queen on the diagonal. Amazing. Well, how come I'm on ICC and chess.com at the same time? I don't know, am I alone really with this? I don't know. You know what, chess players, okay, former chess players and the chess commentators, well, they do a lot of things. Well, I mean, the exclusivity, no, well, I guess it can only be bought, right? Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, basically, what am I? I'm a contractor, right? I don't have a job, you know, with the job security and the bennies and whatever, and paid vacation and sick days and all that. You know, when ICC offers it to me tomorrow, I'll certainly consider. You know, then obviously I'll reciprocate, you know, then, and okay, well, you get me exclusively here, but if it happens, it happens. For now, all the guys like me, you know, they take assignments here and there. There's way more than this too, by the way. I mean, obviously, all of us have private students, and there are some other things. No, that's how it is. Maybe it's for the better, actually, because, well, that way all servers to get variety of personnel there, rather than lock it up, you know, with one guy who would be, you know, droning every day. I mean, not up to me to decide anyway. Alright, so knight a4, I really like this move, because that's he's aiming at b6, and the reply was forced. And now I think another great move was played after this. Knight f6, so MVL activates his queen and brings the knight over there. And then of course the d6 pawn is indirectly protected. But then came this nice little move. It opens up various possibilities, including actually taking on d6, giving up that bishop, and then maybe taking on f6, and the queen gets into the act, picking off the rook. There are various combinations. So that's quite a good move. It also takes away the b4 square for the situation when white finally goes after the pawn, so the black cannot activate the rook. At this moment I thought that Svidler was about to equalize the score in the match. But look at MVL. He played queen h4. Now queen d3. Nice move, right? The queen takes on d6, everything falls. e5, b8. So d5 only move. And takes the c5 square, thank you very much. Forces the pawn to come forward. And here I thought, alright, it's the game, right? Takes over there, takes on f2. I couldn't even imagine any effective counterplay coming from black in this position, but I was quite wrong about it. Rook f1 was played, and now queen g3. Critical position for that match. Mini match. 4 games. No, right, I played 4 games and rapid as well, which counted as point, half point, and the classical games. That's the way they do it. They were given more weight, so you get 2 points for a win. Still, Svidler was in a position to get back in the match. What he needed to do here is just to continue his attack. Now, black is trying to counterattack with queen c3, but it starts with queen a7. Now, this had to be a totally key move, right? Now, the threat is not only to the rook. We're threatening to eliminate this and then take on d7 followed by mate. So I don't think black has time to play rook b5. He actually has to go passive with the rook. And now knight b7. It's such a logical sequence of moves. You just attack on every move. Why wasn't this played? Bishop h3. So, rook to safety. I'm checking my analysis. Check! Knight c5. Look at this, queen and knight. I don't know, I was so surprised that Peter didn't go for this. Maybe you don't like knight c5? No, okay, let's try this. Grab the pawn with check. It's also pretty good, eh? There, e5, you protected e5. Queen f8, now to knight d8. No, right, bad bishop. We talk about bad bishop, but importantly, it holds the e4 pawn. Let's win material and decide the outcome of the game with a pawn queen. I don't know. I think that white's advantage is even larger, you know, than indicated by computers. I don't know how MVL was going to survive this. So the favorites, okay, it's all in the name. MVL, favorite to win. Watch him pulling a little Houdini act. Bishop f3, only one mistake from Svidler. There it comes. Queen h3. Well, bothering white now. I know the rook is defended by the queen, but the queen's supposed to go to some kind of attack. Therefore, white wins the exchange. Maybe Svidler simply didn't look even one move deeper because I win the exchange and my king is pretty safe. What more do I want? Well, the king is actually not safe. Now we have the tables have turned situation with the black queen and knight going after the white king. Okay, well, white wanted to avoid this. He could have done that, but realistically, black now has 2 pawns, bishop and 2 pawns for a rook. And even if it comes to some kind of an endgame, which is possible, we need to protect this pawn for starters. It may not be very easy. Then how do you stop the g-pawn? Now, double g-pawns, it helps black a lot because the white rook cannot effectively get behind the g-pawn. That'll go forward so quickly. Just try that queen d3. I don't know, I think black is playing for a win now. Really? I have a feeling that's exactly what's gonna happen in that endgame. I think the a-pawn, black will be able to control it with his pieces, king or bishop, but the g-pawn, if you need to return your rook all the way on the h-file, that's gonna be passive. So I don't think that was a good winning attempt for white. So could have tried queen a5. That's the move I expected, and I thought that MVL prepared that. So ridiculous as it looks, there is no mate here. The king is just going forward. It's bizarre. Enough protection around this king. You do this, king takes c5. The threat is horrible, knight c3. I think white better force perpetual here. There were some lines that forced the perpetual. Something like this. I don't know. Anand is playing, yeah. Well, anyway, so Peter, somehow I think, this is going to be useful for Svidler, and I'm really happy that he got this invitation at the last moment at expense of Kramnik, who's unable to play. Because Peter didn't really play a whole lot of chess after the candidates, and he played reasonably well on the candidates, and his preparation was good, and he had more good positions than bad ones, and maybe was the one who missed a few opportunities here and there at the candidates. But then he didn't play enough, and he gave this interview and said, I'm not really interested in playing that much. I like other things in life, which is true, of course, we know that. But I think Peter still has a lot in the tank here. But to do well in any tournament, including the Sinquefield Cup that is starting tomorrow. When is the first round? Is that tomorrow? Svidler replacing Kramnik, yeah. But here he simply couldn't keep his focus. This happens, when you, I don't know, kind of play after a long way off. And he played knight takes d7. I think he thought it was gonna be a draw, but in fact, surprisingly, black is winning here. It's amazing to see the 3 of white pieces next to the undefended king, and you can't even get a perpetual out of this. MVL, clinical precision. Now this. You'll see why he forced move b3. Now, know what to do. Go for this and some checks. Well, actually, he can even do that one. Amazing. How many checks do you have here? Are you gonna give up this, but you can't take c6? Then the checks will quickly run out. The king will escape to the king's side and there is mate. It's amazing. He played a4. Now you'll see why forcing b3 was important. Because now he's got this check. With the pawn on b2 he would allow the white king to escape. Not anymore. Back to the cage. Svidler resigned. Because in this position he would be back to the same predicament. Mates are threatening. And the best you can come up with is that. I don't even know if there is any... Okay, there are some checks here, but checks will run out too. You're down a piece, the king is running this way, you cannot take g6. And no stalemate, because you still have pawns. Well, I gotta tell you, looking at this... Yeah, part of this is luck, right? No, you needed a lot of help from white. Namely in this move. Very unfortunate move, bishop f3. But to be able to seize your opportunity and just play knight takes e4 and just calculated everything so quickly, and the confidence. Well, when you're hot, then you even win games like this. Alright, so we're taking a poll here, right? Fabiano Caruana. Okay. Yeah, entirely possible. I would say this. I would give... I have to share it some way. I don't really believe in Giri or Wesley So now. Well, for different reasons, but the outcome is near the same. Giri is in crisis because he just desperately wants to shed this mantra, of Drawmeister. And Wesley is just... I don't know. He's... I don't know if he's following this, but his play is so reserved. And his chess lately is much more academic than it was. I think he's just trying to kind of establish himself on this level, and then thinking ahead. Alright, and then next year I'll play sharper. First I learned how not to lose to these guys. You know who said this? Peter Leko. He said, first I want to learn how not to lose to these guys. And then what? Well, we continue in his train of thought and saying, alright, and then he's gonna learn how to beat everybody. And that second part never really came. There was one moment for Peter Leko when he won the Dortmund tournament and almost beat Kramnik in the match. No, Giri is not even there yet, and Wesley... Okay, so I don't really give them... Okay, I don't know, if no chance means 1% chance or whatever, some small percentage. Same, I find it hard to believe in the veterans. Well, they may do well, maybe all of them will do well. The three guys. Anand, Topalov and Svidler. But as far as winning the tournament, I don't think so. So that takes care of about half the field, right? So who's left? Caruana, Nakamura, Vachier-Lagrave, Dingley Zheng, and Aronian, Levon Aronian. Now, okay, well, cutting down, I know that nobody expects anything from Dingley Zheng. He recently lost like 20 rating points and, well, got beat convincingly by Grishuk in the match, and the score probably should have been even worse. But, fortunes change real quickly in chess. Well, he's got the... To me, if there is a surprising winner, then it's going to be Dingley Zheng, or as it often pronounced, or rather mispronounced in English-speaking people, as Dingley Ren. I don't know, this is my kind of dark horse pick. I cannot really give them a whole lot. And then the next 4 guys to me have an equal chance of winning this tournament. And that's Caruana, Nakamura, MVL, and Aronian. Aronian, I think, is well rested, and he's the defending champion coming back for more. So, I don't know. It's about as much prediction as I can give you guys. No, Kramnik is not playing, but there are other guys who can play the Berlin, and a lot of them. The most popular opening, I'm afraid it's going to be another anti-Berlin thing, but I really want them to take a break from this. I want to see more French defense and the Caracan. We're probably going to see some Sicilians for sure. I think MVA was going to continue with his Sicilians. Anand doesn't mind playing the Naidorf now and then. Topalov. Actually, other guys also can do this. No. Dingleren can throw some King's Indians. Well, that would be a treat. Anyway, I think that's going to be an interesting tournament, and the absence of Magnus Carlsen may be in some ways liberating for the rest of these guys, because they'll figure, okay, now my chances are not worse than the next guy, because Magnus is not there. I did notice in recent tournaments a little bit of resignation on the part of some of the peloton group, the ones that follow Magnus. Do they really believe that they can win tournaments ahead of Magnus? It didn't seem this way in Bilbao. To me, it was a huge disappointment, the Bilbao tournament. Lineup of young players, and they played like old guys. Worse than old guys, in terms of entertainment value. Couple of wins there over the out-of-form Giri. That's all that distinguished Wesley So and the young Wei. And Karyakin was, I don't know what he was doing. But maybe it gives me hope that the next tournament is going to be very exciting and interesting. So, and that happens to be the Sinquefield Cup, so we'll start watching. D3 anti-Berlin, I don't know. Alright, guys. As usual, it kinda... I noticed that you guys are so slow starting, this whole thing. You hardly post anything in this chat room, and then by the time I need to round this up, well, the discussion is just beginning to take full flight. That's a little... Okay, but if that's how it is, at least I'm glad, I was able to fire you up a little bit toward the end. Alright, so we'll be watching. When is the first round? Is that tomorrow or day after? Somebody tell me, please. I know it officially begins on the 5th, but I don't know if they mean the first round on the 5th or just the opening ceremony and the drawing of lots. Not sure. At any rate, I'll be watching. I'm playing a small weekend tournament, so probably my mind is going to be away. But early next week... Yeah, you talk non-stop, Winston Smith. 2 p.m. tomorrow, excellent. Tom Smith was not there. Oh, too bad, you guys should be there from the beginning. Anyway, I'm glad to have you as my audience today, and appreciate, help from everyone. That is very nice. Yeah. Alright, so it's tomorrow, 2 p.m. server time. It's 2 p.m. Eastern. Alright. Okay, we'll be watching, and I know that ICC will provide us with a daily game of the day round report coverage. I get a couple of gigs over there, and plus other, our commentators are great personnel here, and we'll get a variety of opinions. And hopefully we'll get a variety of results. Alright, thank you guys. Take care.